welcome back to the Mosaic Travel Design channel, and welcome back to another episode of Now Boarding, where we discuss the latest travel news and industry updates. My name is Laura, and on the last episode, which was a couple weeks ago, we talked about some new policy changes with United Airlines and their basic economy fares. We also talked about the new heritage cruises with AMA Waterways, as well as a new cruise ship with Uniworld. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch that episode. And on this episode, we have a lot of new updates as far as COVID entry requirements for a lot of different countries. We have some cruising updates and much more. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started with all of our news today, I want to make sure to mention our Instagram page, where we share a lot of travel inspiration and travel information, as well as our Facebook group, where we share a lot of luxury travel deals and steals. So be sure to give us a follow and join up if you're interested. All right, so we have a lot of news to get through, so let's go as quickly as we can. Our first big piece of information came to us at the beginning of the month when Britain announced that it was going to open its doors for U.S. citizens that are vaccinated, as well as those from the European Union, and you can now forego the 10-day quarantine period upon entry to Britain. So that was a great step in a positive direction. Very excited about that. We also heard from Germany more recently on the 15th of August that they are tightening down on some of their requirements. So if you are a vaccinated American, you need to show proof of vaccination, and they also have a new digital registration form that you need to fill out before your flight to Germany. We also have some information on Canada. I'm sure you guys have heard Canada is now open for Americans to go ahead and visit. With the borders reopened, you do need to submit proof of vaccination, as well as fill out a form on their Arrive Canada platform at least 72 hours before you enter the country. Now, just because the U.S. can visit Canada, Canada is still restricted from visiting the U.S., and it was just recently announced that the U.S. is extending the non-essential travel restrictions at land borders with Canada and Mexico through to September 21st. So we'll see what happens later in September if those are changed, but as of right now, those borders are closed for those coming to the U.S. Since Americans are now welcome in Canada, it's also important to note that Canada does require a mandatory vaccination for any domestic travel. So if you do enter Canada and you are looking to travel to other places within Canada, it is important that you have your proof of vaccination, whether you're traveling by air, train, or cruise ship. That is required for you. So if you're traveling from one side of the country to the other domestically, you do need to have that ready to go. It was also announced that Canada will allow cruise ships in its waters starting on November 1st, as long as those operators comply fully with public health requirements. It was originally stated by the Canadian government that they had extended the ban on cruises until February of 2022, but with a lot of the positive movement with vaccinations, they are now bringing that back to November 1st. We are also starting to see cruise ships head up to their home port of Seattle ahead of the Alaska season. I know it's so exciting for Alaska. They've been out of luck with the cruise industry for almost 2 years now, but they're hoping to get in at the very end, late August through to October, so a very short Alaska season. Norwegian Encore was heading up there, and they're hoping to start on August 7th. So they're starting to go out. One thing to note that's important about Norwegian is they are operating as fully vaccinated cruise ships. So they do have different rules because everybody on board and all of the crew members are required to be fully vaccinated. So the cruise can kind of operate with a normal model on board, being that guests can be mask-free, there's no capacity restrictions, and all venues are fully open without any restrictions. Royal Caribbean is also heading to Alaska to resume cruises, and their cruise ships will also depart from Seattle on a 7-night cruise. And the cruise ship that's heading up there is the Ovation of the Seas, started on August 13th, and is hoping to bring that Alaska comeback to 2021. Speaking of Royal Caribbean, they have recently launched their Anthem of the Seas out of Southampton for a 4-night voyage to local United Kingdom ports. This is the first of its series in 4, 5, and 8-night summer sailings that are only open to residents of the United Kingdom. These voyages stop around the British Isles in Liverpool, England, Belfast in Northern Ireland, and Kirkwall, Scotland. Royal Caribbean is also announcing their third ship, the Harmony of the Seas, to get back into operations in Europe starting recently on the 15th of August, and that will sail the Mediterranean itineraries out of Barcelona. We have also seen Oceania introduce 16 new Europe and Tahiti voyages in early 2022. So everybody is starting to push those 2022-2023 itineraries and get folks booked on that. Oceania Cruises is sailing on the Regatta and the Nautica and returning fully to service with all 6 of their ships. So the Nautica is going to sail in April through June of 2022 on European voyages ranging from 10 to 24 days, with ports of call along the French and Italian Rivieras, as well as the Greek Isles, the Holy Lands, and Canary Isles. We also have the Regatta starting in Tahiti with the addition of a new 10-day round-trip Papiete cruise that will start in February of 2022. All right, speaking of cruising, we have to talk about Venice. Venice was recently, the waterways were recently declared a national monument, and Italy has banned the large cruise ships from sailing into the lagoon city. This took effect on August 1st, and it applies to the lagoons near St. Mark's Square. So until a new suitable docking area can be established somewhere else in the waters outside the heart of Venice, the government is approving 4 temporary docking sites near the port. So you will dock at a temporary site until they can figure out where exactly they want to build a permanent site. We also have a new ship coming out. It's the MSC Seashore, and that will sail a season in the Mediterranean before arriving in Miami, cruise capital of the world, which is so exciting. They're going to begin cruises on November 20th. I'm so excited to see more pictures of the Seashore. We recently saw the MSC Seaside and have a video on that if you're interested in seeing a ship inspection of that. We loved the Seaside, and so we're really excited to see more information on the Seashore and see that sailing to the Caribbean in November. More updates on cruising. The CDC has recently added a new requirement that all ships that operate outside of U.S. waters, so any ship that has a home port that is not in the United States, is not eligible to enter the U.S. waters until 14 days after the last passenger disembarks. So when the U.S. home ports for cruise ships were closed down, we saw a lot of cruise ships and cruise lines starting to operate out of a home port in the Caribbean. Anywhere in the Caribbean islands, specifically the Bahamas, we saw a lot. So now the CDC is stating that if a cruise ship is working out of the Caribbean islands, they are not allowed back in U.S. waters until 14 days after the last passenger has disembarked. We're also seeing some new information on requirements from Princess, from Holland America, as well as some others. So let's go through that really quickly. Princess Cruises said that they are adding a mask requirement on board their ships in addition to a testing requirement for the passengers. So all Princess ships that sail in 2021 will have passenger and crew vaccination requirements in accordance with the CDC. So at least 95% of the passengers and crew must show that they're vaccinated. In addition, ships starting to depart on August 15th and later will require that all passengers, including those that are vaccinated, show a negative COVID-19 test within 3 days before boarding. Holland America has also announced new requirements. They are saying that they have a new vaccination requirement to sail. So all guests are now required to wear masks in indoor areas on board, and the policy will go into effect starting August 7th through October 31st. They have a new testing requirement as well that will go into effect on August 14th through October 31st. For all passengers, the test must be taken 72 hours prior to boarding. And last but not least, we have Carnival Cruise Line that is requiring both vaccinated and unvaccinated passengers on its ship to wear masks in certain indoor spaces, starting on cruises that are departing this Saturday through October 31st. They also added a testing requirement that goes into effect on the 14th through October 31st as well. And the same goes for Royal Caribbean. They are also requiring all guests to be tested before they board, regardless of vaccination status. So that's something that we're seeing a lot in common with all these cruise lines. So definitely be sure before you get to your cruise that you check with the latest requirements for boarding. All right, we are finishing up our travel news, but we wanted to mention a few more things regarding Hawaii travel for all visitors and returning residents. They need to participate in the Safe Travels program to waive the mandatory 10-day quarantine. If you are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated, you will also need to take a test from an authorized testing partner no more than 72 hours before departing to Hawaii. Individuals that are fully vaccinated in the United States may enter Hawaii without pre-testing or quarantine. We also have an update from Turks and Caicos. They are now requiring a mandatory proof of vaccination for all travelers over the age of 16 starting on September 1st. The new proof of vaccination mandate is in addition to the requirement of taking a negative COVID test within 3 days prior to arrival. And it's important to note that you must also complete a travel authorization form and a health screening questionnaire before entering Turks and Caicos. Travelers will also need to purchase insurance that covers COVID-19, including full hospitalization, air ambulance, prescriptions, and any doctor's visits. This is required for Turks and Caicos, but I just want to note it's super important to get this no matter where you're traveling right now to make sure you're covered for any health reasons. So make sure you purchase your travel insurance. Last but not least, Americans who have been vaccinated for at least 14 days will be able to travel to Costa Rica without COVID travel insurance. So Costa Rica did have that mandate in place that if you are coming to their country, you need to purchase travel insurance. This is now not a requirement. I still highly recommend it as a travel agent, but it is not a requirement to travel to Costa Rica, and that will be starting in the next few weeks. All right, everyone, so those are the updates we have for you today. Please feel free to ask me any questions and continue the conversation all about these updates in the travel industry down in the comments down below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on everything. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. And with all of that said, I'll talk to you later. Bye.